Mike Adams of MarineMax, a good friend of mine, has been with 20 years of business development, leadership experience. He has been an owner and executive in 5 companies focused on delivering technology solutions to enterprise customers. And during his tenure, leading technology-focused organizations, Mr. Adams received numerous recognitions for his vision and growth leadership. Now, they all have the bios here, okay? They're all in your thing, but I'm just giving some highlights, which I think are very good. He works in close collaboration with the MarineMax executive team to implement a transformative strategy intent on altering the boat, buying, and water recreation landscape. And also with us is Sergeant Joseph Joyce, Broward County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigations Division. And Joe Joyce is a detective sergeant supervising 5 detectives specifically assigned to investigate financial crimes throughout Broward County. And Joe started his career with BSO in April of 1994 as a road patrol deputy. In 1998, he transitioned to the Detective Bureau, where he investigated property crimes such as auto theft, residential burglaries. In April 2017, to present, he's been assigned to the Criminal Investigation Unit, overseeing the investigations of various crimes. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Joe and Mike. Thank you.
Good morning. Talk about pressure, the first one up. Hope everyone's awake and hope I don't put everyone to sleep with this. We're here today to talk about business email compromise and email account compromise. Now, hopefully, a lot of you do not or have never heard of what this is. If you have, it's unfortunate, and you probably had to make a police report and let us know to investigate. Also, I just wanted to say, on behalf of Sheriff Scott Israel and the Broward Sheriff's Office, thank you for letting me come talk to you about this very important topic and scam that has been perpetrated worldwide. It's not just here in the United States. This presentation will touch a little bit on some aspects of cybersecurity, but I'm not going to talk too much about that. I got a much smarter guy coming up after me to talk about that. So, business email compromise. What is it? It's defined as a sophisticated scam targeting businesses working with foreign suppliers or businesses that regularly perform wire transfers, which in your business you perform a lot of wire transfers internationally. And an email account compromise is similar to the business email compromise, but it's targeting one specific individual in your business. And then this is a background on business email compromise and email account compromise. It goes from small businesses to big businesses. They have not been able to pinpoint how a business is selected, large or small. They've hit non-for-profits. There's nothing that they've found that they can pinpoint to say this is why a company was selected. So the subjects that do this scam, they monitor and study their victims using social engineering techniques prior to initiating the scams. They also use phishing techniques, requesting additional details from the businesses or the person that they've compromised. Now, what is social engineering? It's an act of psychological manipulation of people to perform or actions to divulge confidential information. So this relies on a person maybe sometimes coming into your business. They may be someone you've known as, or they may come in dressed as a cleaning person, or come in saying that they are a newly hired IT person here to help you protect your computer. But what they're doing is trying to gain your confidence, so you divulge some of the secrets that would allow them to enter into your computer. Or they may be cleaning up behind you and looking over your shoulder while you're entering your password. And here's some of the here's some of the common social engineering attacks you receive an email from who you think it's a friend of yours or a business associate, and it says to click on this link to open up this file, and you click on the link, and nothing really happens, so you delete it. But what has happened now is they've inputted something in your computer that they can go back later into and open up, and now they have access to your internet or emails. And another one is everyone's natural inclination to want to give or help out. They send an email like for the hurricanes to help out down in Puerto Rico, where they ask you to send money, but what they're really asking for is maybe your account number to your bank so that they can then go into your bank account. Both scams ask you to send money. Okay, and this is some of the intricate stuff that I'm just touching on a little bit that Mr. Adams will talk about later. Phishing. It's a practice of sending emails supposedly from a reputable company in order to induce people to reveal their own personal information. Again, sending an email, trying to get you to send your passwords, usernames, maybe your own personal information, social security number, bank account, stuff like that. And again, the emails or instant messages or text messages may generally come in the form of asking for help, or that there's a problem. Here's a very common one that unfortunately is going around to a lot of people, where you'll get a phone call from someone saying that your grandson's son, uncle, some relative is in a foreign country and has been put in jail, and they need $2,000 to get out of jail. They need it right away. If you hang up the phone, you're not going to get another chance to bail them out. So you get scared, you send them the money, then later on you call that relative and they're fine, they're having a good time, and now that money's gone. And then one of the big ones is you're a winner. Whether it be Publishers Clearinghouse or Lotto, or I'm from another country and I have $50 million sitting in an account, but I can't get into it because I'm not a citizen. Can you help me? I just need $50,000 to get that money out. Can you send it to me? A lot of people are laughing, but people do it, unfortunately. Okay, and then email spoofing. This in the business email compromise is very big. It's basically they're taking your email and registering it, but changing it ever so slightly. So when you're in your hectic, normal activities and you're sending emails and replying to emails, you're not paying attention to who the sender was. So like that example down at the bottom, says john-doe@abc.com. They change it to john_doe@abc.com. You may not be paying attention to it. You hit reply, you send it, or they'll send you an email requesting, hey, I need that wire transfer sent to this account instead of the other one. You don't think anything of it, you think it's a legitimate email, and then you send it off and the money's gone. So this is, I just quickly put down how a normal business email compromise works. These people will spend countless hours, because that's all they have to do. This is how they make their living. They spend countless hours doing this. They'll go on your website, anything open source, and they'll read up about your CEO, everyone in the business. And then they'll use those social engineering or phishing attacks to gain access to your emails, your computer system, any way they can get inside. And what they do is they go inside and they study how you do business. Who is responsible for sending wire transfers or dealing with the money, or they find out every intricate operations that you do. And then once they have this information, they say, like, okay, your CEO, you put on the homepage that he's flying out to Zurich to find out about the newest and greatest widget, whatever it is out there. They know now he's on an airplane going to Europe. He has no service, he can't call him, this and that. So they'll send an email from who you think is your CEO saying, I immediately need $100 million wired to this account. And you thinking that it's your CEO, you send it off, then later on you're speaking to the CEO and he says, I never sent that. I've seen reports on it, and it's a very bad feeling from the person who just did their job and wired that money, knowing that that money's gone now. These statistics I gathered from the open source FBI website. Anyone can go look at it. The IC3 is the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center. They, back in 2013, with the proliferation of all the internet crimes, they started this section of the FBI specifically for internet crimes. They started gathering the information on business email compromise around 2013. So I just took this, and between 2015 and 2016, there was an increase in identified exposed losses. Can anyone take a guess on what that percentage is? Close. That's a big percent. Just in that one year, from 2013 to then. The scams have been reported in all 50 states and 131 countries worldwide. The investigation by the FBI has found that it's not going to one certain country, but 103 countries around the world. They do have some that are more than others, but 103 different countries around the world. Okay, so these numbers, when I started doing the research on it, it's staggering. I couldn't believe it. So the first one from October 2013 to December 2016 was reported to IC3, law enforcement, and financial institutions. Domestic and international incidents, over 40,000, with over $5 billion in losses. And then from October 2013 to 2016, this was reported just to the IC3. That total US victims, there were over 22,000 with $1.5 billion in exposed dollar loss. And then total non-US victims, over 2,000 with 626 million. And here's some more. This is from just from June 2016 to December 2016, over 3,000 with $346 million in losses. And then non-US financial, 774 and 448. Okay, so now everyone, you saw the numbers, and I was scared looking at it, and I'm sure a lot of other people, you deal with this all day, every day, and I'd be a little worried also. Here are some suggestions. One of the biggest things I think is to spread the word between your industry as a whole, and I've spoken to some other people about this, and specifically the real estate field, and a lot of people are worried about letting clients know. because then they're afraid that the clients will think, oh, I can't trust this person, or I can't trust this real estate agent or broker or whoever. But I think if we educate our clients out there to know that this scam does exist, we haven't been hit, you haven't been a target of it, but this exists. So increased awareness. Constantly educating your employees to not open up that link on that fishy email. Send it to your IT department. Let them look at it first. They'll be able to determine if it's maybe an attack or some kind of spam email. Then they can send it back to you saying, yes, thank you for not opening it, or no, go ahead and open this up. Try and avoid the free emails, Yahoo, Hotmail, that kind of stuff for your business. They do recommend trying to avoid the free emails, but for your home, if you don't maybe do any financials on your home email or anything important like that, then the free email server is fine. But they suggest purchasing your own web-based email servers to be more secure. Be careful what you post on open source websites. I know some people have to. It's for the customers. But what I was talking about before with the schedule of the CEO or executives of the company, it's suggested. And always be suspicious of anyone asking you personal questions or asking you to change, asking you what your protocols are for your business that the normal person wouldn't need to know. It's suggested that you institute maybe a tiered system of authentication for sensitive accounts. A username, 2 different passwords, multiple questions after you sign in, just to get into your account, to make it harder for the person to hack into your email. Here's one that I found very, very interesting. They suggested never hit reply on an email because of the spoofing, where they change the email to make it look like your own. There are ways, and I'm not sure if Mr. Adams will talk about it, but there are ways to, I'm sure you've seen in your emails, where it doesn't give out the email address, but when you receive the email, it just says the name. So they may have somehow engineered it to send you that fake email, but it'll come up with your CEO's name on it. So then you automatically hit reply. Now you've just replied to their fake email. What they suggest is either, if you know the person's email, hit forward, type in their email address, and then send it off, or go into your contacts that you know is a correct email for this person and use that contact email to always reply back to the people. Beware of sudden changes in business practices, and have your IT department create a intrusion detection system that will detect if an email comes in that is somewhat similar to your own domain address, but maybe slightly off. That way it'll tip them off to know that, hey, this person's trying to get into our system. And one of the biggest things that I preach, and it may be hard to do in your business world, but any wire transfers, try and confirm. The best is in person. The second best is by telephone. I know you can't always do it, but it's a suggestion to always confirm large wire transfers. And if you're going to use a phone to call a person, use a trusted number. Don't use the phone number from the email, whether it's in your contacts or the in your contacts in your phone or your email. Use those phone numbers. Don't ever use the phone numbers listed in the email. And carefully scrutinize all email requests for transfer of funds. And again, education of the clients. This was a suggestion that was kind of built for the real estate field, but it was suggested to them that as you sit down, the initial sit down with the client, advise them that I will never send an email to you advising you that the account number for the wire transfer has changed. If you're going to do a wire transfer, tell them, okay, we're going to sign this contract saying this is where it's sent, this and that. If I have to change the wiring instructions, we will sign a new agreement, or the wire transfer just don't do. Okay, what to do if you found that you've been a victim of this? Immediately call your financial institution to try and stop that transfer. Sometimes you don't know it was fake, so it may be a day or this and that, but one of the first things you do is immediately call your financial institution to try and stop that transfer or to get them to start tracking it. Secondly is call your local police department to make a report. And as you're waiting for the police to arrive, you can go on the website onto the IC3 and file a report there also. The FBI has a broader reach than we do here locally. So if they can find out that, okay, the money was transferred from your account to an account in Seattle, but then immediately went to Hong Kong, they can get a hold of their contacts in Hong Kong to try and freeze the money over there. They've told us that they've had some success in collecting the money, but the minute it's transferred, you transfer it to another account. Within minutes, that's gone into a foreign account and gone. And I think that's it. Yep, I think that's it.
Morning. Always thank you. I don't know about you guys, but all internet. So I want to talk a little bit this morning. Sergeant Joyce did a great job of walking us through the impact it has and some very specific details of how do we protect ourselves. I'm going to talk a little bit more broadly of how do we institutionalize this in our organizations, and then want to make sure we leave plenty of time for Q&A. So I'll go through this somewhat quickly, and because I'm sure there are a lot of questions. Bob, I'll just look to you for the cue when you're ready. So, let me ask a question here first. How many people have been impacted by some of the things that Sergeant Joyce is talking about? So look around the room. So it's at least half the people in the room have had a direct impact from some kind of cybersecurity breach. It is very common, and it's here to stay. So the other thing I'll point out is when we go home at night, when we leave our businesses at night, each of you, I'm sure, have a practice that you go through. You lock your front door, you turn on your security system, maybe you have security cameras, maybe you even have a security company. And you have a process that you probably follow if something were to happen, if somebody shattered the window and broke in. Or somebody stole something. And it's the same thing in the virtual world. We have to think ahead, we have to have the protections, and we need to invest the money to put those protections in place. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we can do to do that today. So you have the clicker? Where? This one? Oh, okay. Sorry. So first, just real quick, Sergeant Joyce did a great job of talking about why, but I'm going to talk about building an information security practice. And so I thought I'd put the definition of practice, and the most important thing is we do it over and over again. And so as you take something back to your businesses at the end of today, hopefully it will be, hey, this is not a one-time engagement for us. It's something we have to think about every day. What I've put up here is an actual graph of some email that we get into MarineMax over a time period earlier this year. And you'll notice the blue line shows that we get about 25,000 emails a day into our system. And then we get about another 25,000 of spam emails. Many of them very innocent, some of them malicious. And what will happen is if one of our employees clicks on a link or does something to interact with the perpetrator, you'll notice that the emails start to spike. So we start to get targeted. This is very common, happens in your business and it happens in our business. And I thought it would be an interesting point to make in that once you get on a list, it gets circulated and you become a target out in the cyber criminal community. So you can see that the actual traffic spikes tremendously. Because now we think that as a cyber criminal, I have a good target. We went from 50,000 emails total to just between 100 and 150,000 during those periods of emails targeting our organization. So I'm going to walk you real quick through an actual attack scenario. So I'm going to take the details that Sergeant Joyce gave you and put it into real life. This is something that we know happened in the industry. And it's great that we as an industry are talking about it, because it impacts all of us, not just an isolated organization or within an organization, especially with the way a lot of our transactions flow. So we actually had had seen an organization that had a salesperson receive a phishing email. It was a spear phishing email. So in other words, they had identified this individual as a target, not the company, the individual, and sent them what appeared to be a credible email. The individual clicked on a link, went to a website, and entered their credentials. They certainly didn't do it maliciously. They thought it was a legitimate email. Once they gave their credentials, the page didn't do anything. They moved on with their day. The cyber criminal now has access to that person's email box, entered the email box, set up a rule so that well, first they monitored the email for a couple of weeks. We actually have facts around exactly what happened. They monitored the email for a couple of weeks. They identified a transaction that was about to take place. They set up a rule to send all email from that customer into a hidden box within that salesperson's email account that only the cyber criminal would be checking. So then the cyber criminal took over communications out of that person's email box in that email system. So it wasn't even spoofing. They were actually communicating back and forth from the salesperson's email account, was able to understand who some of the executives were in that organization, who some of the managers were. They were able to copy the wire instructions that get sent out, change the wire instructions, communicate back and forth with the customer, and have the customer send approximately $700,000 to a fraudulent bank account. And so that happens on a regular basis. And it's very sophisticated and very difficult for somebody to catch once the breach has occurred. So the best thing we can do is to protect ourselves against the breach occurring. The areas of risk that we have to think about, Sergeant Joyce did a great job of talking about what happens with our employees. That's certainly our first line of defense and an area that we need to focus on in protecting ourselves. But it's not the only area. We have the concern about internal network breaches. We all work in environments that are pretty open. A lot of people come in and out of our showrooms or our facilities. There's a lot of activity focused on moving product. And so it's very easy for somebody to come plug into the network, stick a device into a network jack, and actually gain access into our internal networks if we don't have the right protections in place. We also need to be concerned about rogue employees. It happens. We see it on a regular basis. And then we have probably the most popular that you hear about all the time are the external network attacks, the hack, right? And there's certain things that need to be done to protect against that. Then we have our network systems. Some of the largest breaches we've heard about, such as Target a few years ago. The Target breach actually happened through the HVAC system. I saw the Secretary of the Army speak a few years ago. They actually had an attack on the Department of Defense through a sprinkler system. Our systems today provide us a lot of convenience, but they're networked, and therefore we have to worry about how they're protected. And then finally, our vendors. Our vendors, many of them have access into our networks, and so we have to understand what controls do our vendors have in place. And then finally, you can see some of the breaches. I don't really have to harp on this. We all read about it in the news, but you know, the most recent one, Yahoo came out and updated the fact that every one of their accounts was compromised, all 3 billion. So really none of us are safe, so we have to have a plan of what are we going to do to protect ourselves, and then what are we going to do to respond. And just like any good business, a plan starts with what is our mission and what are the values we have around our cybersecurity program. If you haven't had an opportunity to sit down with your organization and define what is the mission for our organization and what are our values around cybersecurity, I encourage you to do so because it's always a good foundation for business planning. And then move to your strategy. What is the strategy that you have? And it's different for every organization, and every organization has a different risk profile, and you as an organization would need to explore what is our risk profile. We all are probably pretty similar, but it'll vary. And so, you know, we started with some core underlying beliefs about what happens in the cybersecurity realm, and then we said, hey, here are some of the things that we're going to do, and we want to measure that. We've all heard, right? What we don't measure, we can't be successful at, and so we define what our metrics are at the starting point and where do we want to be at a certain time period, and that defines a good strategy around cybersecurity. And then we finally identify what are our lines of defense, because it's not just IT. I will stress that again. It's not just IT. As a matter of fact, I would say only probably about a quarter of protecting against cybersecurity fraud rests with your IT department. So if you're relying on them to provide 100% of your protection, you may want to look again and figure out what is our broader strategy. So define what are the lines of defense for your organization. And then look at what your risk profile is. And again, it varies for everybody. You know, we did it this way. You can do it in a much more simple way, right? And think about where do we believe as an organization we're going to get targeted and how we're going to get targeted and what are the risks of that. And is that risk growing or is it shrinking, whatever the case may be. So what are some of the things we can do once we have that strategy in place? The first thing we can do is follow a plan. So again, just like managing a business, we start with our mission and our values, we build our strategy, and then we come up with a plan to support that. The plan that we've adopted and that many organizations have adopted is the NIST cybersecurity framework. So the National Institute of Standards and Technology is a government organization. They do things like tell us exactly what an inch is. But they also do some things in the technology world to define standards. And so a few years ago, President Obama came out and encouraged NIST to come up with a cybersecurity framework that is actually very easy for organizations to implement. And it's broken down into 5 areas: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And so I'm going to kind of walk through what we can do in some of these areas. But you'll notice that it's not all about protection or all about detection. The first thing we have to do is identify what our risks are, build those protections in place, but inevitably the breach is going to occur. No one is immune. And so we have to know what are we going to do to respond, and then if we do have some sort of outage or loss, what do we do to recover from that? And if you have those plans in place in advance, you'll be able to move through the issue with a lot less loss. And again, measure, where are we today? Where do we want to be? And then start looking at the progress. And so we have some of the strategies that at a very broad level that we've undertaken as part of our cybersecurity initiative. And you can kind of read through those from each of those different areas for the sake of time. And then we actually plan out what are we going to do next. So we talked about what we did. Now, what are we going to do in the upcoming time period to continue to protect ourselves? Because it is a practice, and we want to make sure we're practicing. And then finally, we have to think about the things we always think about with a business. What is the budget? Where do we stand versus our peers? What should we be investing in cybersecurity? There's a lot of really good benchmarks out there to guide us. And then of that breakdown, where does that money go? And then finally, what are the regulatory requirements we have as an organization around cybersecurity? And in our world, there's a lot of them that we need to be concerned with. So I went through a lot of probably pretty deep information pretty quickly, but I wanted to leave time for Q&A. So I will open the floor to questions.
Any questions, raise your hand, please. We have a live microphone here. Any?
I have a question. My question just has to do with when we're sending wire transfers to or information to our clients. Is it better to just call them and give the numbers, or to attach it in an email or embed it in the text of the email? What would be the safest?
So there's a couple of tactics that we use, and then I'll let Sergeant Joyce talk about maybe some of the broader things that he's seen. Obviously, verbally giving out wire instructions, if practical, is always the safest thing to do. But it's not always practical, and our businesses move very quickly. So the one thing that we've done as an organization is we have defined that only certain individuals within the organization can give out wire instructions, and the way they distribute that electronically is, one, they have to do it from an account that has multi-factor authentication. So it can't just be an email password to get into their account. It also has to have perhaps a text verification code or some other type of second level of verification. The other thing the person, the policy they have to follow is they have to send that email to our customer in an encrypted manner. So there, you can actually have encrypted email that's a lot harder to breach, so that's going to the customer in a secure area. I think most of us have seen it. I'm sure our customers have. If we're communicating back and forth with our doctor's offices, they will communicate most of the time with us in a secure, encrypted environment. So it's not uncommon for our customers. It's a little bit less convenient, but certainly very safe. So those are some of the things that we do. Sergeant Joyce, what else do you see?
Yeah, whatever you decide to implement, I think the biggest thing would be to instruct the client on what that process is and to not deviate from it. Even if you receive an email, do not deviate from the process that was already explained.
Can you talk to us a little bit about reporting? So we've all seen a lot of activity with phishing, and even to the point where direct emails have come in asking us to wire expense reports. A few times I've personally reported to the IC3 at the FBI, but zero response is given. So how do we know what action, if any, is being taken, and what can we do to make sure that we are all reporting so we can catch or stop some of the people that are out there actively targeting this industry?
It's a great question.
Yeah, definitely continue to report all that stuff to the IC3. They may not respond to you, but they're definitely gathering up the information, and they may see the same trademark from your case that is happening in New York and San Francisco, and they may not get back to you, but they may be looking at it. Also, you can definitely report it to your local police department. Like I said earlier, we don't have the resources that they do, but local law enforcement can still definitely send out subpoenas for IP addresses and try and track down, but then it kind of stops in certain areas. But at least with your local police department, you'd have a local communication to talk with.
We get an email, and after we open it up, it says they want this information. Click on this to download the photos, et cetera. If we do not open that up or click on the box, say for their Dropbox or something, are we already compromised just by opening up that email and reading the content, or do we have to click on something beyond that?
Opening an email will not compromise your environment. The two things that typically compromise your environment, and this is great education for your team members, is number one, clicking on a link. and a couple things can happen. One, they'll give out their credentials, so they should never give out their credentials. Make sure they know that their IT department will never email them asking for their credentials. And then secondly, the link could install malware, keyloggers, things of that nature on the environment. The other is to open an attachment. If you open an attachment, then you could be installing a program onto your computer unbeknownst to you. But if you're just reading the email, you'll be safe.
Lots of good questions. All the way to the front.
Once you have maybe don't know that you've been compromised, is there an IT department or is there somebody that can come through and sweep and find out if you've been compromised?
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of organizations. So your IT team certainly has the ability to go through and tell at a, what I would say at a broad level, if they're starting to see activity that would indicate that an account has been breached. Oftentimes we're able to go through in the cases where we've had breaches and find other people that have been breached. But it typically takes some kind of footprint for us to identify that. The other thing you can do is hire an organization, an outside organization that specializes in that can come in and actually sweep your network, so to speak. It's much deeper than that, but do that and then identify, is there malware already? Have you been breached? Do you have keyloggers on your machines? Things of that nature. It's somewhat expensive, but a great starting point, and as a matter of fact, it's how the Equifax breach was discovered. They hired a company called Mandiant, probably the world's premier cybersecurity consulting organization, and they actually discovered the breach. Equifax did not.
Over here.
Sergeant Joyce, do you ever catch these bastards? Second question is, why isn't this a capital crime?
Well, I can't say. With all the reports I receive, it goes from just thousands of dollars up to millions. I wish. I don't think making it a capital crime, I don't think it would change their mindset. A lot of these larger scams come from overseas and trying to get into, even the FBI trying to get into those countries to further their investigation. It's very hard. But it's your first question, very hard for us. On the local side, the FBI has a little more ability to further the investigation, and I think they've been successful. I sat in a seminar with them, and they said they've been successful in recovering some money. Not a lot, but recovering any money is better than none.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. Actually, if you guys want to read a great article, it's a little bit long and probably a little bit dry, but it's a phenomenal article. Go back to Wired magazine from around December or January, and they walk through a cyber criminal gang that was on Obama's sanctions list and how they went about attacking worldwide citizens and what we did to catch them. So when we report, we're adding to that defense. We rarely will get our money back, but we will make progress towards protecting the overall environment. And at the end of the day, this isn't just a personal security issue or a business security issue. It is a national security issue. When we get a malware installed on our devices, they're used to send malware and other types of programs to other devices that may contain confidential information that foreign governments use. It is the real deal.
Quick question regarding downloading apps. Say you download something and you actually put it on your computer, or if you download it and then decide, no, I really don't want this, and just delete it and actually put it in the trash and then actually empty your trash. How does that differ, or how is that similar? Or do you find it really happening that way, or is it really more through email?
So that's a really tough question. So downloading an app in and of itself could actually have already infected your computer. And the reason for that is you have clicked on some links, and those links can actually perform executables in your environment. That's less common. Usually they're trying to get you to get the app down and install it. So if you get the app and you don't install it, then obviously you're safe, you delete it, and you should be okay. The one thing that we encourage people to do, one, in your business environment, no one should be installing programs in a business environment without the IT team doing it. As a matter of fact, if your IT team hasn't set up the computers in your environment to be protected from doing that, then they should probably do that. And then always make sure that if you are installing applications, they're from credible sources, and there's lots of ways to look at that. You know, look at the reviews, look at how many types of applications have been built by that particular organization. You can typically tell, you know, if it's kind of an oddball program with very few reviews and, you know, somebody you've never heard of, just avoid it. It's probably not that important to you compared to the risk.
For those of us with less sophisticated IT departments, are there programs, Malwarebytes, something we can install that'll help us that don't have that sophistication built in?
So certainly there's antivirus programs from very reputable companies like Symantec and McAfee, et cetera. You can call your email provider, whoever that is. If you use Office 365 or Google or one of those companies, they actually have spam filters built into their services where you can talk to them to help make those spam filters more strict. So there are certainly steps that you can take within the environment that you have without an IT department, or you can maybe make a smaller investment and go hire an outside organization that can come in and at least get you set up and tell you what to do going forward. There's lots of those companies around.
Okay, I think we have time for just one more question. Is somebody in the back? I have a question that actually arrived. Incidentally, there are hard copies of the PowerPoints that you can get from Shay in the lobby. And also these will be appearing on the IYBA website as videos that you can access later on, so you don't have to be frantically taking notes and all that stuff. But I have one question to finish out here. It arrived by text from an unknown source. Okay.
Your admirer.
You didn't click on a link in that, did you?
Yeah. It says, hello, I'm a former NFL football coach, and I'd like to know if it's possible. I'd like to know if it's possible to recall an unfortunate email video that has been sent and received.
Yeah, obviously the email filters were not working that day.
All right, there's two other things, and thank you so much. Mike has a quiz that's in your packet here, and there are 6 questions to be answered. We'll reveal the answers to those questions later on. And I don't know what the prize is, but there's also a leaflet. I think this probably came from Joe. A leaflet here from the Identity Theft, the Federal Trade Commission, that's within your packets as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was great.
Thank you.